What if I told you that one of the most powerful tractor companies in American history, a company that built its 5 millionth tractor before any other manufacturer on earth, is completely gone today? International Harvester once ruled every farm in the country. Then, in just a few decades, it vanished. But the machines they left behind, farmers still argue about them at coffee shops, at auctions, and over fence lines. Here are 10 of them. Number 1. The Farmall Super M-TA. Let's start with a machine that genuinely changed how farmers thought about power, the Farmall Super M-TA. Now, you have to understand the era. In the early 1950s, every tractor on every farm in America required the operator to come to a stop, disengage the clutch, and grind through the gearbox before changing speeds. It was slow, it was hard on the machine, and it broke the rhythm of field work. International Harvester looked at that problem and decided to solve it in a way nobody else had attempted in a row crop tractor. In 1954, IH introduced the Torque Amplifier, a 2-speed planetary gear unit built into the drivetrain of the Super M-TA. It allowed the operator to shift between 2 power ranges on the go, under load, without touching the clutch. This was an industry first for row crop tractors. You could be pulling a plow through heavy soil, feel the ground get tough, and simply pull a lever to drop into the lower range. The tractor kept moving, kept pulling, never broke stride. The engine behind this was a refined version of the Farmall M's 4-cylinder, producing around 44 horsepower at the belt. Modest by today's standards, but a serious workhorse for its time. The Super M-TA also carried over the hydraulic fast hitch system that IH had introduced on the Super C, allowing quick implement changes without the farmer ever climbing off the seat. Interestingly, the name Super M-TA was partly inspired by the wildly popular Superman animated series of the 1940s. International Harvester's marketing team wanted farmers to associate the machine with superhuman capability, and for most of the farmers who ran one, that wasn't much of an exaggeration. The Super M-TA was only produced for a short window, from 1954 to 1956, which is exactly why it gets overlooked. It was replaced when the number series arrived in 1956, but old farmers who ran these machines don't forget the Torque Amplifier. They'll tell you it was the first time a tractor ever felt like it was working with you. Number 2. The Farmall 560. Few tractors in IH history carry as complicated a story as the Farmall 560. And that complexity is exactly why farmers haven't stopped talking about it more than 60 years later. In July 1958, International Harvester threw one of the most ambitious product launches in the history of the tractor industry. At their testing farm in Hinsdale, Illinois, they entertained over 12,000 dealers from more than 25 countries. The star of the show was the new 60 series, and the Farmall 560 was the flagship. It was a 5-plow row crop tractor powered by a 6-cylinder engine producing 66 horsepower on gasoline, with a 282 cubic inch diesel option. Styling was completely redone. The elegant Raymond Loewy lines of the letter series were gone, replaced by a bold, squared-off modern look that IH would carry through to the end of the Farmall era. The problem? In a race to beat the competition to market with more power, IH had bolted that bigger engine onto a drivetrain that was essentially unchanged from the old Farmall M, a design that dated back to 1939. The final drive simply couldn't handle the stress. Farmers began reporting failures in the field after just a few hundred hours of heavy work. The bull and pinion gears in the rear differential were galling under load. In June 1959, less than a year after that grand launch, IH issued a widespread recall of all 460, 560, and 660 tractors. It was an enormous public relations blow, and it handed John Deere an opening they exploited brilliantly when they launched their new generation of power tractors in 1960. I responded with urgency. New parts were engineered, a new oil formula was developed, and dealers were authorized to perform the repairs. About 70,000 units of the 560 were ultimately produced, and once the drivetrain issues were corrected, the tractor proved itself as a capable, durable machine. But the damage to IH's reputation in the market was real and lasting. The 560 is remembered for being both a milestone and a cautionary tale. Proof that rushing a product to market, even when the engine is exceptional, will cost you if the supporting components aren't ready. Number 3. The Farmall all 1206. In 1965, International Harvester did something nobody thought possible in a two-wheel drive row crop tractor. They broke the 100 horsepower barrier. The Farmall 1206 was the first turbocharged Farmall ever built. It used the 806's diesel engine, now breathing through a turbocharger, to produce 110 horsepower. To put that in context, John Deere's comparable tractor at the time, the 4020, was producing around 91 horsepower. The 1206 didn't just edge past the competition, it redefined what farmers expected from a two-wheel drive machine. I had been building toward this moment for years. In 1964, they had made their 4 millionth tractor, appropriately, an 806. Then in 1965, the 1206 arrived and immediately became the most powerful production row crop tractor available anywhere in the world. The machine was so powerful that early models literally destroyed tires. Standard agricultural tires of the era couldn't handle the torque being delivered to the ground, and both Goodyear and Firestone had to develop new heavy-duty tire specifications specifically for the 1206. That's a remarkable piece of tractor history. The tractor was too powerful for the tires that existed. Dual rear wheels was standard equipment, and the 1206 was offered with a wide, narrow, or powered front axle, as well as a factory cab option. A total of about 12,000 units were built before it was updated and rebadged as the 1256 in 1967. The selling price at introduction was around $9,600. The 1206 had a production run of only 2 years, from 1965 to 1967, which is why it's less visible in fields today than longer-running models. But among serious IH enthusiasts, the 1206 holds a legendary status. It was the moment International Harvester proved that more horsepower in a row crop machine wasn't just possible, it was the future. Number 4. The International Harvester, 1456. If the 1206 broke the barrier, the 1456 was what IH built after they knew they could. The 1456 replaced the 1256 in 1969 and upped the horsepower again, this time to 131 horsepower, using a 407 cubic inch DT407 turbocharged diesel engine. It was available as both a Farmall row crop model and an international general use model, and it became one of the most respected high-horsepower two-wheel drive tractors of its time. Only about 5,600 units were produced between 1969 and 1971. That's an extremely small production run for a machine of its capability, and it goes a long way toward explaining why the 1456 doesn't get the same recognition as the 1066 or the 1086, which were built in far larger numbers. The price at the time was around $12,300, serious money for a farm purchase in 1969. Farmers who ran the 1456 consistently describe it as one of the finest pulling tractors I ever made. The torque curve of that turbocharged DT407 engine gave operators confidence in the heaviest field conditions, working fall tillage, pulling deep chisel plows, or running a large grain drill in tough soil. The 1456 was replaced by the 1466 in 1971, which brought an even larger 436 cubic inch engine and a reinforced frame. But IH veterans who've run both often have a soft spot for the 1456 that they can't entirely explain. Some machines just feel right when you're behind the wheel. Number 5. The International Harvester 1568 V8. Here is one of the most unusual and genuinely forgotten tractors International Harvester ever built. In 1972, IH introduced the 1568 V8. A tractor powered by a 155 horsepower V8 diesel engine, not a conventional 6-cylinder inline agricultural engine, a V8. The engine was derived from IH's own truck power plant, displacing over 640 cubic inches and delivering a torque profile unlike anything else on a farm at the time. Only 862 units of the 1568 V8 were ever built, making it one of the rarest production tractors in IH history. The V8 delivered smooth, surge-free power that large row crop and grain farmers found exceptional for heavy pulling work, but the complexity and cost of the engine made the tractor difficult to service at typical rural dealerships, and its price was beyond the reach of many operations. I also built a 4-wheel drive version, the 4568, in 1975, which used a 230 horsepower V8. Both machines are extraordinarily rare today, and finding one in working condition is a serious collector event. The 1568 V8 lasted only from 1972 to 1973, replaced by the conventional six-cylinder 1568. For those lucky enough to have run one, the smoothness of that V8 under load remains unforgettable. This is the tractor that proves IH was willing to experiment in ways that almost no other manufacturer was. Number 6. The Farmall 806. The 806 doesn't get talked about as much as the legendary machines that came before or after it, but it should, because the 806 was in many ways the backbone of International Harvester's most successful sales era. Introduced in 1963, alongside the 706, the 806 used a six-cylinder engine, producing 95 horsepower in diesel trim. A significant leap from the 560 it was built to replace in customer confidence, if not directly in lineage. The 06 series was regarded as an extremely successful product line, selling well and establishing IH's reputation for reliable six-cylinder power in the mid-horsepower range. In 1964, the 4 millionth International Harvester tractor rolled off the assembly line, and it was an 806. That milestone speaks to just how productive the Rock Island Farmall plant was during the 806's production run. By 1967, IH had built over 100,000 combined units of the 706, 806, and 1206 series, a staggering output. The 806 was offered with gasoline, diesel, and LP gas engines, along with a range of front axle options, a factory cab, and the famous Torque Amplifier transmission that IH had introduced on the Super MTA back in 1954. The 806 was the tractor that John Deere's 4020 was most directly competing against during this period. Farmers who ran the 806 found it exceptionally versatile, capable enough for serious row crop work, reliable enough to trust day after day. That it gets overlooked today is simply because it was replaced by the even more capable 86 series. But the 806's place in IH history is cemented by that 4 millionth tractor milestone. Number 7. The International Harvester 1066. The 1066 has more symbolic weight in IH history than almost any other model, because on February 1, 1974, at precisely 9 in the morning, a 1066 rolled off the assembly line at the Farmall plant in Rock Island, Illinois, as the 5 millionth tractor International Harvester had ever produced. IH was the first tractor manufacturer in the world to reach that number. The 1066 itself was a 125 horsepower turbocharged diesel workhorse, powered by a 414 cubic inch DT414 engine. Approximately 55,000 units were produced between 1971 and 1976, making it one of the more common high-horsepower IH tractors of the era, which is part of the reason it remains findable in fields and at auctions today. I also offered a hydrostatic version, the Hydra 1066, but the hydrostatic drive introduced some power loss compared to the gear drive version, leading IH to eventually create the Hydro 100 to address that gap. The 1066 was popular with grain farmers running large operations through the corn and soybean belt of the Midwest, and it was built during a period when IH's production was at its peak. The 1066 high clear variant with raised front and rear axle housings for working in tall crops is particularly sought after by collectors today. For old IH hands, the 1066 is the tractor they picture when they think of the red machine in its prime. Number 8. The International Harvester 358088. This one is genuinely strange, and it's one of the most innovative designs I ever attempted. In 1979, International Harvester introduced the 3388 and 3588, which they marketed as the 2+2 four-wheel drive line. The concept was bold. IH engineers essentially took two 1086 rear ends, connected them together through a transfer case, and built an articulated four-wheel drive tractor around that combination. Both axles were powered, both sets of wheels drove the machine, and the articulation point in the middle allowed the 3588 to turn in a field despite its considerable size. The 3588 produced 167 horsepower from a 466 cubic inch turbocharged 6-cylinder diesel engine with a 16 forward and 8 reverse transmission. Weight was approximately 17,620 pounds, and the fuel tank held 90 gallons. This was serious equipment intended for large acreage farming in competitive markets. A year after the 3388 and 3588, IH added the 3788. The entire 2+2 line performed well in the field. Traction was excellent, the articulated steering was manageable, and the power delivery was smooth. But the tractors never sold the way IH had hoped. Farmers found the concept unconventional, and the high price during a period of increasing financial stress in agriculture made the decision difficult. Only 5,643 units of the 3588 were ever produced. Today, surviving 2+2 machines are rare, and they attract enormous attention at tractor shows and collector events, partly for their unusual appearance, and partly because they represent IH's willingness to engineer something completely outside the conventional mold. Number 9. The International Harvester 508088. By the early 1980s, International Harvester was in serious financial trouble. A devastating labor strike in 1979 had cost the company enormously, and farm equipment sales were declining as the agricultural economy weakened. Against that backdrop, in September 1981, IH stood up at a dealership meeting and announced the 50 Series, one of the most stylistically distinctive tractor lines the company ever produced. The 5088 was the entry point of the 50 Series at 136 horsepower, followed by the 5288 at 162 horsepower and the 5488 at 187 horsepower. The design was the work of IH industrial designer Greg Montgomery of Montgomery Design International, and it was genuinely radical, a swooping aerodynamic cab with clean lines that broke completely from the boxy 86 series that had come before. Tractor design across the entire industry was influenced by what IH did with the 50 series. The 5088 came standard with cab heat and air conditioning and offered a front-wheel assist option, a significant practical upgrade for traction in wet field conditions. The engineering beneath the styling was just as advanced. These were among the most operator-friendly, feature-complete tractors that any manufacturer had offered at that price point. The tragedy of the 50 series is its timing. These were exceptional tractors introduced by a company that was running out of time. In 1984, Tenneco, which owned the Case Corporation, acquired International Harvester's agricultural division. The merger created Case IH in 1985, and IH's independent life as a tractor company was over. The 5088 and its siblings went out of production, and with them went the last chapter of an independent International Harvester. Farmers who bought 50 series tractors got some of the finest machines I ever made. The company just couldn't survive long enough for those machines to save it. Number 10. The Farmall Super C with fast hitch. We started with the Super M-TA and its Torque Amplifier. Let's close with the machine that first introduced another one of IH's most underappreciated innovations, the fast hitch. The Farmall Super C was introduced in 1951, and among its distinguishing features was the debut of IH's fast hitch system, a 2-point hydraulic hitch that allowed a farmer to connect and disconnect implements quickly without tools, without threading bolts, and without leaving the tractor seat. The Super C produced 23 horsepower, making it a capable mid-size machine for the era, and it was rated for 2 plow work. The fast hitch was genuinely clever engineering. At a time when the 3-point hitch system developed by Harry Ferguson was beginning to spread across the industry, IH chose to develop its own proprietary alternative. The fast hitch was faster for implement changes than anything else available in the early 1950s. The name wasn't marketing fluff, it was accurate. The problem, and the reason the fast hitch is remembered as a missed opportunity more than a triumph, is that IH developed not 1, but 3 incompatible variants of the system across different models. The 100 series used a single-prong fast hitch. The 200 series used 2 small prongs. The 300 and 400 series used 2 large prongs. An implement that fit one model wouldn't necessarily connect to another. This fragmentation made the system frustrating for farms running multiple IH tractors. By the 1960s, the industry had standardized on the 3-point hitch, and IH eventually discontinued the fast hitch entirely. But in its prime, the Super C with fast hitch was one of the most productive small tractors in American farming. A two-person job turned into a one-person job by a hydraulic coupler that took seconds instead of minutes. So that's it for today. If you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching.